The silence you didn't notice. There is something quietly painful about people leaving your life. It's not always loud. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it doesn't even look like leaving. No goodbye, no explanation, no final argument to mark the end. Just a slow fading. One day they still laugh with you. The next, their replies feel shorter. And then, one day, they're still there, but somehow they're already gone. And you sit there wondering, when did everything change? But here is the truth that most people never tell you. People don't leave suddenly. They leave slowly, silently, piece by piece. And often, you don't even realize it's happening.
No one wakes up one morning and decides to disappear from your life without a reason. Leaving is rarely a moment. It is a process. It begins with something small, a feeling that they were not heard, a moment where they felt unimportant, a conversation that ended too quickly. You might not even remember it, but they do, because for them, it mattered. At first, they try to ignore it. They tell themselves, "It's okay, maybe I'm overthinking." But then it happens again and again. Not enough to break everything, but enough to create a quiet distance. And distance, once created, rarely shrinks on its own. It grows, slowly, silently, unnoticed, until one day the connection that once felt strong becomes something fragile, and then something distant, and finally something gone.
One of the deepest human needs is simple: to feel heard. Not just listened to, but understood. There's a difference. You can hear someone's words without ever truly understanding their feelings. And over time, that difference becomes painful. Maybe they tried to talk to you. Maybe they told you how they felt. But you were busy, or distracted, or tired. Maybe you thought, "I'll listen later," but later never came. Or maybe you listened, but you didn't take it seriously. You dismissed it, minimized it, turned it into something smaller than it was. And every time that happened, they felt a little more alone, until eventually they stopped trying. Because it's exhausting to explain yourself to someone who doesn't truly hear you. And when someone stops trying to be understood, they are already halfway out the door. At the beginning of every connection, there is appreciation. You notice everything: their effort, their kindness, their presence. But over time, something changes. Not because you don't care, but because you get used to them. You start to assume they will always be there. You stop saying thank you. You stop noticing the small things. You stop choosing them because you believe they've already chosen you. And that belief is dangerous, because nothing in life is permanent. Not people, not relationships, not even love. Everything needs to be nurtured. Everything needs to be valued. And when someone feels like they are no longer appreciated, they begin to question their place in your life. Not loudly, but quietly. And that quiet question eventually becomes a quiet decision. There is a moment that almost everyone experiences at least once. The moment when you realize someone is gone. Not physically, but emotionally. You look at your messages. You notice how things have changed. Short replies, delayed responses, less enthusiasm. You try to reconnect. You try to talk more. You try to fix what feels broken. But something feels different. Because by the time you notice, they have already been letting go for days, weeks, maybe even months. And the hardest truth is this: You are trying to fix something they have already accepted is over. And that is why it feels impossible, because you are starting where they have already finished.
People grow. That is the nature of life. What you cared about 5 years ago is not what you care about today. What mattered before may not matter anymore. And in relationships, growth is everything. If two people grow together, they become stronger. But if one grows and the other stays the same, distance is inevitable. Not because someone is wrong, but because they are no longer aligned. Maybe they started to see life differently. Maybe they wanted deeper conversations, more meaning, more emotional connection. But you stayed where you were, comfortable, familiar, unchanged. And slowly, they felt like they were walking forward alone. And at some point, they stopped waiting for you to catch up.
Not all endings are visible. Some don't come with arguments, or conflict, or closure. Some endings are silent. You still talk, but not like before. You still see each other, but something feels missing. You still connect, but it feels shallow. And that is the most dangerous kind of distance, because it doesn't look like a problem until it becomes one. You don't notice it immediately, because nothing is obviously wrong, but everything is slowly becoming less right. Less laughter, less effort, less presence, until one day, there is nothing left to hold on to. Not everyone shows their pain. Some people don't complain. They don't argue. They don't demand attention. They stay quiet. They keep everything inside. They smile. They act normal. They continue as if everything is fine. But inside, they are slowly disconnecting because they feel unseen. And when someone feels unseen for too long, they begin to disappear. Not suddenly, but gradually. And by the time you notice, they have already gone far beyond reach. Relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on effort. Not equal effort every day, but consistent effort over time. When one person starts giving more and receiving less, something begins to shift. At first, they don't mind because they care, because they believe in the connection. But over time, it becomes exhausting to always be the one reaching out, the one trying, the one holding everything together. And eventually, they stop. Not because they don't care, but because they are tired of being the only one who does.
The small signs. People rarely leave without showing signs. The signs are always there, but they are small, easy to ignore, easy to misunderstand. They talk less, they laugh less, they share less. They stop telling you about their day, stop asking about yours. They become quieter, more distant, more neutral. And if you're not paying attention, you miss it, because nothing feels urgent, nothing feels serious, until one day, it is. This might be the hardest truth to accept. Most people don't leave because they want to. They leave because they feel like they have to. Because staying hurts more than leaving. Because trying feels pointless. Because hoping feels exhausting. Because waiting feels endless. So they choose peace, even if it means losing you.
Connection.
Maybe people didn't leave you suddenly. Maybe they left you slowly while you weren't looking. Maybe they were hoping you would notice, hoping you would ask, hoping you would care just a little more. But you didn't. Not because you are a bad person, but because you didn't see it. And sometimes, not seeing is enough to lose someone. So if there is one thing to remember, it is this: pay attention to the small things. Listen when people speak. Notice when they change. Value them while they are still there. Because in life, people don't always leave loudly. They leave quietly. And by the time you hear the silence, it's already too late. If this message stayed with you, take a moment. Think about the people in your life right now, and maybe reach out before distance becomes goodbye. Subscribe to Simple Life, where we don't just talk about life, we learn how to keep what truly matters.